as you go through doing other people's homes or seeing different designs just through your work and through trying to stay up to date on the market, you'll probably see a lot of different things. You're like, ooh, that looks so cool. And now you're trying to mesh like 35 different that looks so cool things that really have no business necessarily being thrown together. Like, how can I make this work? Because I really like all.
And I have that conversation with clients all the time because they are like, oh, I want to do the cool thing here and here all in the same room. And I'm like, they can't all be rock stars. You need one rock star and the rest need to be a really cool backup singer. We need to pick our focal points because then there are so many cool things you don't even know where to start and it gets lost in the noise of the design.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Insights podcast. Today I am joined by Christina. Again, welcome back this week, this month. Christina, how's it been going?
It's been going great. It's been a busy week, but I never really complain. My work is fun, so even if I'm busy, I'm so fortunate.
Yeah, right. Like you either have time or money. So if you're not busy with that, then it probably means you don't have any money to do anything anyway. So you'll be busy with stuff going on. And Christina, you're obviously the owner of Davinci Interiors, so interior design is your forte, and so it'll be fun to talk about some of the things going on there. How has your last week or so been in that world?
So I have some interesting projects going on. We're working on a Parade of Homes home, which is going to be about a 10,000 square foot showcase home that's going to have really amazing, as I like to say, Mac Daddy finishes that are just really going to be extraordinary. So that's fun because I have a lot of creative license on a project like that. And personally, we're building out a full office for Davinci Interiors locally at a building called X Space in Lakeway. And so that is very exciting to build out my design studio and also to have a showroom.
I'm sure, especially when you get to design your own space, because then I'm sure there are times that you go into a client's home and you're like, ooh, we could do this and this. But if it's not what you obviously are going to acquiesce to giving your professional advice, but also what they find appealing. Where with the space that's your own, you get to be like, I get to do what I find appealing. So that's always got to be a lot of fun.
That's true. Although I have to say, I'm my absolute nightmare client. So whereas I could go into somebody else's home, I'm extremely decisive. I can envision what's going to be perfect in my own space. I have circular loops of is this going to love it in a year? It makes me more empathetic to my clients when I do my own personal projects.
Yeah, it's basically like decision fatigue, right? Like because you have all the decisions available, it actually kind of sometimes research has shown having so many decisions makes it challenging to pick one, where in a lot of cases, if you can narrow that down to 3 or 4 decisions, it makes it a lot easier.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. And for a client, even in the absence of me who really refines the decision process, maybe they only know this much of the products that are available versus I have this whole universe of our products that I know about. It makes it all the more impossible. But It makes for a more unique, bespoke design because people haven't seen them before.
That, and I'm sure you have, as you go through doing other people's homes or seeing different designs just through your work and through trying to stay up to date on the market, you'll probably see a lot of different things. You're like, ooh, that looks so cool. And now you're trying to mesh like 35 different that looks so cool things that really have no business necessarily being thrown together. Like, how can I make this work? Because I really like all.
And I have that conversation with clients all the time because they are like, oh, I want to do the cool thing here and here all in the same room. And I'm like, they can't all be rock stars. You need one rock star and the rest need to be a really cool backup singer. We need to pick our focal points because then there are so many cool things you don't even know where to start and it gets lost in the noise of the design.
It makes me think of when I have clients that come in from out of town that are going to relocate to Austin, and they generally want to get as much in as possible because they're only here for a short time. And so they're like, oh, we want to go see 10 or 12 houses on Saturday. And I'm like, okay, we can try. But in reality, you're probably going to be done at about 6. I've done this a lot. After about 6, you're ready to be done. Doesn't matter. And then inevitably as well, once they get done with the 6 and we'll recap and say, okay, what was some of your feedback on the different homes? And they'll be like, oh, I really liked this one because of the kitchen and this outdoor space and the home office. And I'm like, well, those were actually 3 different homes. It wasn't one home. You've now melded them all. So that sounds like an amazing home, but I don't.
Oh my goodness, it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
the unicorn.
Right. So it's interesting just how the brain works that way. sounds great in theory, but it's not necessarily the most practical best option.
That makes sense.
For the Parade of Homes, where is that located this year? I'm assuming it's still Lakeway-ish area.
Actually, not. So I found that very intriguing. So the Home Builder Association is going to be doing it in New Braunfels. So it's going to be the 2024 Parade of Homes. And New Braunfels is like a hot, new, sought after area in Texas, which I wasn't really very familiar with. But you can really get beautiful big lots, and there's a great sense of community there. So it's fun for me to learn a lot more about that area and what kind of expansion's going on in and around Austin.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's a city that's being like halfway distant to probably a little closer to San Antonio, but halfway distant between San Antonio and Austin allows people. I've had clients that have had family kind of both areas, and that's a great, maybe a great place to live, so that we can be a little more equidistant. And then it's also, as San Antonio and Austin basically become one long corridor of a city. Right now, it hasn't quite happened yet. New Braunfels is still convenient for a lot of people, but it still feels like its own city, where like when I first moved to Austin, Georgetown was its own city, and that's not really the case anymore. Like you don't, as you're on 35, you don't really ever leave the city as you're going from Austin up to Georgetown. And there's that benefit, like you say, lot size, some less expensive homes than if you're trying to live in Dripping Springs or Lakeway specifically too. So it's definitely attracting a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
With the Pareto homes, I know we talked a little bit off camera, but you were mentioning that unfortunately it's not an unlimited budget, but you do get the opportunity to potentially do some things that you wouldn't do traditionally in a home. Are there any kind of any specific items or things that, again, are more going to be for fun and for show that maybe you wouldn't recommend someone traditionally do in their home?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Where I pause is that I always like to push people's envelope and challenge them from a design perspective. So, one of the things that I'm really excited about doing is that we're going to book match some slabs. So it's almost like they're the mirror image of one another. So the design from one slab then continues on the other, and that's going to be a focal wall in our kitchen, and we're also doing some effects like that on some fireplaces. So it just is this extraordinary natural feature that you really get to highlight, and it creates a unique piece of art that I'm really excited about. And then some of the lighting effects that we're doing, I think I mentioned this to you before, I look at lighting as illuminated art throughout a space, and we're really doing some unusual fixtures, and also creates a features the architectural design of a home with kind of ambient lighting as well. So a lot of clients won't go all out and do the up lighting and the down lighting and things on timers, so that throughout the day you really experience the house in different ways. And you and I were talking about this
I
a
was
wee
just gonna
bit
say, like, we
earlier,
were
like,
just DMing a
right.
week or so ago because I had found out some information that, again, you as an interior designer knew. Were like, oh yeah, that's old hat for me. But relatively new stuff that kind of about lighting that kind of again shifts throughout the day to help, as we're spending more and more time in our homes, helps get you up and percolating in the morning, and then through dimming itself throughout the day helps rest and relax you as you get closer to nighttime. And so I think that's, again, a really cool idea in a way that technology can be super beneficial to help people with their daily activities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm diving more and more into the psychology of how my designs clients on a daily basis, and even in my own home, where some rooms are activated, but some rooms, like my bedroom, are very quiet, because at the end of the day, I just need to relax and calm down and quiet my brain and get a good night's sleep. So it's fun exploring that journey with clients too. How do they want to feel in their home?
Right. It's something that it's not uncommon to hear people talk about. Get off your phone 30 minutes before you want to go to bed, so your mind can rest and relax, or do, different meditation kind of stuff. But I think a lot of people don't necessarily then translate that also to how their home and how their rooms are, and how that can affect them as well too. Because while not maybe the same level of stimuli as your phone provides you, there are definitely still outside forces that are going to be impacting your ability to rest and relax for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
It was interesting in talking to someone else about the lighting elements, that some of the people who have liked them want them more for the color aspect of them, which is not something. When I saw the different
Mm.
colors, right, like the purples and stuff, I was kind of like, not so much for me. But I know that's becoming bigger with gaming and with like movie theaters and stuff,
All
to
right.
like the lighting be part of the movie experience, since nowadays most of us have pretty good sized TVs in our homes, and you can watch movies without leaving the comfort of our own couches. Is that something in some of your designs as well too?
It's interesting that you say that because I have this really cool three-dimensional white wave wall in my home, and it's about 18 feet tall. And so oftentimes I have LED lights that kind of wash up and down it. And so sometimes I will change the color. I'll change it to a blue color, or sometimes like a light pink going on purple, and it just changes the mood and the tone of the room. I tried red, but that's like much too activated for me. I can't do it. It's hard. That's a hard one for me to get clients to embrace, because for me, it's very South Beach, Miami, cool and fabulous. You feel like
Yeah.
you're in a chill lounge or something. So I guess I should push clients to do that more.
Not the Texas West Coast vibe that
No, it
most
is not.
Austin lights are kind of from. It's more that East Coast vibe that way. You mentioned,
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I found these lights at, it's either Lowe's or Home Depot, these solar lights that are floodlights for your home. And so I got a whole bunch of them that are like a really pretty blue color. So even on the exterior, to add a little bit of color in your lights, really streaming across the elevation of your home, that makes a lovely difference too. So if I can't convince it to do it inside, maybe I can get
you
it
get a
to
little
do
bit
it
outside, and
outside.
that's like saying that's one of those things that's relatively inexpensive and
Right? Oh, yeah.
much easier change than deciding to do a slightly different color paint on your house to change the.
Yeah, it's less committal for sure and more friendly to the wallet.
Definitely. On the Parade of Homes, you mentioned that it's for 2024, and for these homes,
Correct.
they're brand new construction, so they're built from the ground up. But is there a time that's best to start reaching out to an interior designer if it's something that you're thinking about just remodeling instead of building from scratch, but thinking about, hey, I want to remodel my home. Either, again, obviously some people, that if it's old enough home, might take it down to the studs, others less extensive on the remodel, but hopefully they're reaching out before they've already demoed the kitchen themselves. But when, what is, yeah, exactly. But is there kind of a good sweet spot for kind of first making contact and running ideas by an interior designer?
For me, it's ideal as soon as a client knows that they want to endeavor on a remodel or new build, to get a designer in the process as early as possible, because we have so much experience in value engineering a project to say, let's do this extraordinary tile on this wall, but then we could do something a little bit more budget friendly on the other. So that way we can help guide the clients and what is going to be the realistic budget for this project, because they'll say, okay, this is the budget that I have in mind. And oftentimes it isn't realistic,
Sure.
because I
Yeah,
know, I
yeah.
know people are looking at houses.
The budget and what they see on Pinterest and in line with each other.
And you're like, and then there are taxes that you need to pay and insurance. Same thing with me. I'm like, you need to put another 8.5% on that budget, just for taxes. Plus, two, like, we'll help them navigate with whatever contractor. What are the good questions that you should be asking? Do they have a good project management piece? Because the more organized you are, the more efficient you're going to be with your budget. And we really excel at that. I mentioned before, spreadsheets and Asana boards are part of our love language here at Davinci Interiors, because it makes it a much easier process for me and my team, but also for my clients, because they see a clear path. Yeah, if they could get in sooner than later with an interior designer, even though they're investing in the design fees, they're actually going to be saving a lot in how we help them navigate through their budget.
Sure. And it gives them the opportunity. I'm sure there have been times when people have come to you and then had to significantly alter what they were doing, just because once they realize it from a budget standpoint, or once they found out what they could get done. Hey, one of the things that seems interesting to me is, right, if we're I had a client not that long ago that bought a home that wanted to take the flooring that was in one part of the home and extend it to another part, but that flooring pretty much wasn't available anymore.
Oh, right.
And so like understanding things of that, just because you want to do something in stages, are you going to have all of that product, and is it going to really flow the same way if you do it over the course of a couple of smaller remodels or
Really.
one larger remodel?
Yeah, and that's interesting because we've had a couple experiences with that of lately where even the same could be a different dye lot. So it could be the exact same product, but it's wood. It's a natural product. This wood is a little bit yellower than the last lot of wood that came out of the lumber yard. Yeah, having that continuity is hard. Oh, excuse me, my Texas allergies are kicking.
If you have all that stuff up front, then maybe sometimes you could be like, hey, well, let's, instead of, if it's two separate rooms, it may not be a big enough difference. If it's really an office and a living room, that may be far enough apart that it's really not noticeable. But if it's if it's a continuous area, then if you have all that stuff up ahead of time, you can maybe be like, let's mix the two. Is there a way maybe we can mix the two together to create a more seamless pattern or seamless flow that way, versus have it look like we're in the shade over here and slowly the sun over here. You're gonna have to get the expensive lighting just so you can light it differently, so it looks like it all flows as one thing.
Oh goodness! No, go. You go.
I was gonna say, are there any of the design trends that you're kind of starting to see that you maybe question how long they're really going to last? To me, it seems cool, but also a little odd of how long the minimalist style kind of lasted, of having very muted tones, whites, grays, that kind of stuff like that. I'm like, that was a number of years, and it seemed like it was a big thing for quite a while. And now, as we're seeing some changes to that, there are some things for me personally that I don't really know if that's going to be around in 2 years or so. Are there any things you see that you feel might be a little more trendy instead of really stylish?
I'm really curious about the new wallpaper craze, because wallpaper was a big thing years ago, and you get some dimension, you get some funky patterns and color saturation. And it's a big investment because not only do you have to get the wallpaper and installer, but then you also have to prep the walls, because most people's walls are not perfectly.
I have some PSTD from being a kid, having to scrape 4 layers of wallpaper in a really old house. Paint this wallpaper right over it versus actually prepping it.
I am curious to see. I hope it lasts a long time, because it really adds such a.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more than just like a painted metal. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. And that one, on the same token, felt like it was gone for way longer than a lot of other ones. Right? Because we're starting to see warmer colors come back. But they weren't gone for that long, even though we've had this more kind of white and minimalistic look for a while. But like wallpaper, again, aside from really doing it as a kid, like it feels like for most of the last 20 plus years, if not more, that it's really been on the fringes of stuff and now coming back. So it's, to me, that one's a kind of surprising one of how long it was left into the drawing table.
Yeah, and so what's interesting too is that because it wasn't trending for so many years, there are very few really good quality wallpaper installers, because it's just not a skill set that people were embracing, because it wasn't a sought after field to study. You're lucky if you find a really good wallpaper installer where in a month it's not going to be falling down off your walls.
Yeah, which again, with the cost of some of the wallpapers out there, is definitely not something.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You definitely do not want to skimp on the installation of any product, quite frankly, but on something like that for sure, because it's not something like once you've done that, if it's not installed properly, you're not really recovering that material to reinstall it at all.
Absolutely.
One of the things that in seeing how the real estate market has been adapting and changing, one of the things that I feel like we will see for the next few years at least is people probably staying in their homes for a little bit longer periods of time than maybe they would have. There might have been reasons for a growing family, for downsizing, that they would have potentially tried to move to a different home within their neighborhood. But because of interest rates and how low most people's interest rates are in their homes, if they have an interest rate at all, that they are going to be hesitant to want to, especially in the upsize, because usually you're buying a more expensive house, but they might be a little hesitant to want to go to that bigger house and now have go from a loan that was at 3% to a loan that's at 6% or more anytime soon. And so are there, with people potentially staying in their homes maybe a little bit longer, are there any kind of things you could recommend or that you would think about that would help make that home, as it's maybe starting to feel a little bit smaller because of the growing, because of the kids getting bigger and just the more stuff we tend to accumulate? But are there ways that people could maybe improve their living space without having to go full on remodel that you're
Right.
familiar with?
For me, it actually starts with organizing and editing your home, because if people are feeling closed in their homes, having too many pillows or accessories or too many pieces of art just makes you feel closed in. So to really take a editing eye and look around and say, do I have one too many pieces on this morning? And it's distracting. You need to go around your home with a scalpel and say, okay, really, where can I edit? Or such an easy way to refresh your room is to change out the pillows and maybe take a whole bunch of pieces of art and just get one big focal piece of art. And that's just such a simple way to change the personality and tone of your room. I would say it starts with organizing, editing, and there are even companies now that they specialize in organizing their home. And even for me, I go to Container Store and my OCD is so happy because I can organize anything with their stuff. So $1,000 later, I'm like walking out of the Container Store, but I come home and it brings me joy. For me, if my home is not chaotic, then I feel a greater sense of calm
Yeah.
in my home.
No, and like I say, if part of the reason that you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed is, how long you've been there and the stuff you've accumulated as a real estate agent, when someone's finally ready to sell, they usually have way too much stuff in their home to make it look great, for someone else to move in. And sometimes we can do a great job of finding new things, right? If you enjoy bargain shopping, going to the consignment store and finding different things that are really cool, but we oftentimes have a much harder time letting go of stuff. And the longer you live in a place, the more you tend to just accumulate. And so being able to take that scalpel and let some things go is a good way to get a refresh and make the space a little bit better.
And one thing I'll tell a client, if they're really hard pressed to get rid of it, I'll say, okay, put it in your closet and you're allowed three things on this console. Every 6 months, you're allowed to shop in your closet and pull out three of the things in the closet, but only three could go in the console. The other things need to go back in the closet. So at least that way,
Yeah.
they could still appreciate their beloved items. But
Yeah, instead of just thinking of it as like your seasonal items like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween,
right.
be like, hey, I have enough stuff that I can just rotate my own things out and keep it looking fresh and new while not being as cluttered as having all six of those things
Exactly.
on the same shelf. That's an awesome idea. Cool. Seems like a phenomenal tip to leave people with here while we get back to the fun days of actually doing the real estate and doing the interior design work. I appreciate
Well,
you.
thank you so much. I always love chatting with you.
No, it's always a great time. I appreciate it as well. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.